Welcome to Real Estate Investing Abundance, the show for busy, fulfilled professionals like you to learn how to develop financial independence built on solid, passive real estate investments. Now, here is your host, Dr. Alan Lomax.
Hello, enlightened investors. Welcome back. Delighted to be with you once again today. We are going to be talking about a topic pertinent to all of us as active investors. And that is, what if there's more to getting the best credit and loan approvals than your credit score? Over 25 years ago, Merrill Chandler, a personal and business funding pioneer and co-founder of Lexington Law Firm, became dissatisfied with the ineffective results of credit repair. Leveraging his extensive knowledge of borrower behavior profiles, FICO scores, metrics, and lender underwriting requirements, he developed a process to optimize consumers' credit profiles and their behaviors to improve fundability. Merrill founded GetFundable.com to deliver his revolutionary technology to real estate and entrepreneurs. So Merrill, take us into the show and share an experience that helped you to be who you are today.
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. And while that intro is a mouthful, what's fascinating is I lead this, my mission in my life. My why behind everything that I do is empowering borrowers to know how to get approved for loans. And this entire process derives from my own history. I grew up a very low-income family, Much of my grade school years, we were below the poverty line due to unemployment, disability in my family. And so I grew up with this desire to have more, but not knowing how to get it. Right? Not knowing any of the rules of the financial game. Even when I was a young adult, right? In my 20-somethings, my paycheck would pay my overdraft account to zero, and then I'd live off that credit line. I was always upside down in every possible way. I didn't know that there were credit bureaus, didn't know we didn't have FICO scores back then, right? Didn't know how to leverage money, which your listeners, if they're your listeners, they all automatically have a baseline of saying, hey, how to use other people's money, right? How to leverage. I didn't grow up with any of this. And so I was kind of out of the starting gate, kind of that guy limping along, just trying to survive. I ended up, as my intro said, becoming friends with, and then ultimately learning from and co-founding Lexington Law with one of my dear friends. And Lexington Law today is the single largest credit repair law firm in the country. So I had to start from zero learning all this. And one of the greatest things that I found, Alan, was that there are definite rules to this game. And if you play the game by the rules, you can prosper. But the rules are not easy to find and not always what you think they are right up to the front. So without profit motive and conspiracy theory sometimes get confused for each other, right? But the profit motive is that I discovered while I was at Lexington, you cannot repair your way to fundability. You can't just delete negative items all of a sudden, ta-da, I'm going to get approved for loans. So my last 30 years of my professional life has been exploring, discovering, and sharing the kind of what's inside the financial matrix, as it were. And this podcast is an opportunity for us to, if I'm Morpheus, then I want the Neos that are your listeners. If we're familiar with that show, I want us all to be able to wake up to the reality that it is more possible to leverage the least expensive money on the planet than ever before. Even in this time, rates are going up, but you can get the best possible interest, cost, and approvals if we know how this game is played.
Merrill, thanks for sharing that with us. Sadly, the masses can relate to your story. It's the few people who find the roadmap. It's available to really anybody in this country, but finding that is extraordinarily challenging if you haven't been fortunate enough to be raised in a family who has figured this out. Yeah. So you said you found a partner. How did you happen to find the partner that helped you to open your eyes to this possibility of leverage?
Yeah, Steve Page, dear friend from ages ago, but we actually met in a self-development course way back in the early 90s. I co-founded Lexington with him in 92, but I met him in 90, and literally one day I'm invited over to his house, and he's like, Merrill, hey, I asked him, what do you do for a living? He goes, credit repair. And I'm like, what is credit repair? I had no clue. I didn't know the last time I had access, even a year earlier, I went to buy an automobile, just like we all do. I sat in front of the dealer. They were on their computer and they're like, yes, pick your car. You're approved. I didn't know what that meant. And just like your listeners, all I thought it was paying my bills on time. Most people don't know is that there's actually 40 borrower behaviors that are measured by lender software. That computer is takes a look at my credit report and does the calculations on and analyzes 40 borrower behaviors from that data. Now, back then, credit scores were not prevalent. They were not a public thing. They didn't become public until the late 90s when the guy with the mandolin talking about get your free credit score, all that stuff. Before that's late 90s. Before that, credit scores were like that secret sauce that was held to the lenders and auto dealers, mortgage brokers, et cetera, right? And when they started publishing scores, the first scores that were published were fake scores. FICO wasn't publishing the lender scores out in the world, that freecreditscore.com. Those were generated by the credit bureaus to make money, not reveal credit scores. And so one of the first things that I want to share with your listeners is that there are FICO scores and there are FICO scores. The definition of a FICO score is any score that is published out in the world or given to you that lenders do not use to make a lending decision. That seems kind of on the nose, right? But you would not believe the greatest violator, the greatest purveyor of FICO scores, you heard it here first, is Credit Karma. Credit Karma, over 100 million users of Credit Karma base their financial health and well-being on fake scores. Credit Karma scores uses Vantage 3.0. Vantage 3.0 is not used in most lending decisions. Like 90+% use FICO. So when you go to your Credit Karma and you look at those two scores, notice there's not three bureaus represented because the third bureau uses FICO in its public face. The other two, Vantage Score 3, those are fake scores. But if you go click on the featured credit card or featured service and you click that button, apply now, they pull up a FICO score to evaluate you. So it's the greatest bait and switch in financial history because it's on its face lying to you on the front page because they use a FICO score when you apply for the featured credit card. That's a perfect example of FICO scores being used to deceive us consumers because we don't know the rules of the game. We don't even know that there's FICO versus FICO scores, most of us. And there have been a number of studies done where the average score difference between a FICO score and a Vantage score or the fake scores on Credit Karma, 30-point difference. FICO scores are lower. And so now somebody takes their Credit Karma scores into an auto dealer thinking they got a 720, 730, and they actually have a 690 when the auto dealer pulls it. And they're like, WTF, what just happened? I don't understand, because they have a significantly higher interest cost on the loan compared to looking at that. So that's a perfect example, Alan, of how if we don't know the rules of the game, that's a landmine. So while I may be Morpheus and you and I are awakening the listeners to the truth, we're waking up standing in the middle of a minefield. It's like, now what? Where do we go? Because no matter where I walk, unless I know what I'm doing, I have the chance of blowing up my funding opportunities.
Merrill, thanks for that information. I had no idea Credit Karma was just putting out fake scores. I was under the assumption that the scores I'm looking at on Credit Karma were FICO scores.
Until we know it, we all do. That's the insanity.
And I don't know that they actually say that they're FICO, but they certainly give the impression that that's what we're looking at.
They do. In fact, it says in small, tiny print under the scores required by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, it says Vantage Score 3. But then if you go to the Q&A, how they get away with it, if you go to the Q&A or the disclaimers at the very bottom, it says these scores are based on Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion data. Well, that acts like that is the blessing of authority. Well, yeah, everybody scores the 3 bureau data. The algorithm used is not the FICO algorithm to create the score, but they make one more layer deep. Yes, this data is based on Experian, or these scores are based on Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. One more subtlety, one more layer of lie.
For sure. And I always wondered why the third bureau was not being reported by Credit Karma. And I understand now that the reason they don't is because they are using FICO.
Actual FICO scores in their public marketing. Yes.
Very interesting indeed. Merrill, what are the major mistakes that we as real estate investors make when it comes to seeking our funding?
Okay, first of all, most of us still believe that we have to do full documentation. Number one, full documentation, right? And what's interesting is one of the unstoppable forces that have over the last 10 years is the movement from lenders to go from manual underwriting to automatic underwriting or automatic approvals. You've been gone through the automatic underwriting process when you fill out an online application, let's say for a credit card, and less than 30 seconds, you get the approval or the denial. No human being looked at that. No underwriter was back there with their calculations, seeing if you deserve it. They looked at your credit profile and did the math. They checked your identity. They pinged 6 databases for data. And if your application data matches to some high degree the databases that other lenders are keeping on you, 3 bureaus plus 3 others, then that's what returns an approval. Whether you get a $5,000 approval or a $30,000 approval is based on your score. So this is the next thing that real estate investors mistake is that, and one of the things where the blinders are still on, is that when FICO started publishing, historically, when they started publishing true FICO scores, then what they wanted to do is not reveal the secret sauce behind these scores. So what they did is think of your credit scores, listeners, as the shiny object, right? It's squirrel. Everybody looks and everybody's chasing how high. Yes, I have an 800 plus credit score, but credit scores are not used to approve you. What happens is your score, every single lender has a threshold. Let's call it 700. And that approval threshold can go up or down. In prosperous times, it can go as low as 680. We're moving more and more where lenders are moving that threshold to like 720. But it's different for every lender. I'm not saying that it's the same for everybody. I'm drawing an example here. But let's say it's 700. If you don't hit on the credit bureau and score that's being pulled, if you don't hit 700, your application is denied straight up. At 701, then your score doesn't matter anymore. Doesn't matter if it's 701 or 801, doesn't matter. They bring in the 40 borrower behaviors and measure those 40 borrower behaviors. Then the lender software that's measuring those 40 borrower behaviors, that's what approves or additionally denies you, right? You're approved by your borrower behaviors. Then and only then does the level of the score matter. Whether you get a $5,000 approval or a $30,000 approval is based on your score. Whether or not you get 18% or 26% interest on your credit card is based on your score. So it's brought in twice, but it's used to determine rate, term, and the amount of the approval once that baseline is looked at. So your score, guys, does not matter until you're approved. once you have those minimums, right? So that's another thing that real estate investors, think of it this way, Alan. You're playing basketball and you're running down the FICO and which scores are being used and all this stuff. It's like you're playing basketball and you look into the bleachers and some rando's just holding up a 3-digit number on a sign. You're like, yeah, okay, that's our score, and you just keep playing the game as though that rando score matters. As a player, you were not hired to play for that pro team on your score. You were paid on your skill set, your stats. All the stats is what recruited you to Citibank or to BB&T, Team BB&T, Team, Wells Fargo. That's how we got on the team, is our borrower behaviors. And that is why we need to make sure that we are focused on our borrower behaviors, not on the score. Score comes after we have created a fundable profile.
Merrill, just briefly tell us specifically what your company has to offer and how it is that we can get in touch with you to take advantage of that.
Oh, absolutely. So borrower education. I'm a borrower educator, and we want every single borrower, especially the high volume, high dollar amount borrowers, which are real estate investors. We want you to have the lowest costs, the lowest fees, and the highest approvals possible. So you can go to fundabilitymastercourse.com and literally look at my flagship product. It is the training product, and just read the reviews. Don't even believe me. Just read the reviews of real estate investors who have gone through this course and said, in some instances, this is the single greatest business financing training of all time. Those are not my words. I'm quoting them. So fundabilitymastercourse.com, and that's fundability, 2 words mashed together. And that's our end game for you and for all borrowers in this country, is that we become fundable. So fundabilitymastercourse.com, just see what possibilities exist there. There are strategies in there. You will learn that through this financing game, how to shave $5,000 or more off of every single auto, truck, RV loan you do for the rest of your life, only because you know how the game is being played, and you know about the FICO scores, and you know about just the things that the other players do. Imagine having the playbook, I guess, Alan, is the best way to say it. This course gives you the playbook of the credit bureaus, lenders, and FICO.
Merrill, very good. You're not going to have time in our show today to go through these 40 borrower behaviors, but what are the top 10 behaviors?
Well, how about, I can answer the question, but how about I give your folks a link to go see actually the 150 borrower behaviors, that is the pool from which these 40 are drawn, and every lender in the country draws their borrower behaviors that they want to measure from this pool. Would that be okay? Can I over-deliver? Would that be all right?
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
So you're going to go to getfundablebehaviors.com. Get fundable behaviors, that's plural, behaviors.com, and just tell us where to send it.
All righty. Wonderful. That sounds very crucial, that from what I'm understanding here, our behaviors are much more critical than our scores, but I suppose our behaviors are going to contribute to that score.
Yeah. Fundable behaviors create highly, highly fundable scores. That way a lender knows exactly, hey, I want to give this guy or this girl $50,000 instead of $5,000.
Merrill, what is the difference between credit repair and fundability?
Sure. So credit repair is this process. Everybody puts credit into 2 categories. I got good credit and bad credit. That is such a simpleton view of the world, because I've seen 650 credit scores get high dollar approvals, and I've seen 820 be rejected out of hand time after time after time. So there's no such thing as good credit and bad credit. It's fundable or not fundable, because that's the determining factor. Well, credit repair focuses on raising a credit score by seeking to delete negative items off a credit profile. Well, Out of those 40 borrower behaviors, Alan, only 10 focus on derogatory listings or negative accounts. That means there are 30 that focus on optimizing a profile. Credit repair, everything's a nail because it's a hammer, right? It's scorched earth. If you have negative items on your credit report, you just try and take them off. But what most people don't know is that there are innumerable cases where leaving a derogatory item on is better for your profile than taking it off because of all the other borrower behavior calculations that it contributes to, rather than just the 30-day late or the charge off or whatever it is. There are other mitigating factors that can make that account be more valuable on your profile than off, even if it's negative. And so credit repair doesn't take into account any of that. They literally just, oh, it's late. Try to get it off. So it's scorched earth policy, whereas Fundability seeks to look at every single account in terms of all 40 measurements, and then see, should it stay on? Can it come off legally? And then it creates an opportunity for, you can optimize 30 borrower behaviors, not even remove a negative item at all. We have numerous clients with a 30-day mortgage late, still on their profile, but they have a fundable profile that's over 800. So what that means is they get approved and they get the best rates and terms and approval amounts because they have the high score and a fundable profile, but they still have derogatory accounts. You cannot do that with credit repair. And I should know, as I stated at the beginning of our interview, I co-founded what is now the 800-pound gorilla in the credit repair space. And I left Lexington because it couldn't deliver the results. It couldn't make borrowers fundable. And that's where we are today.
Merrill, what types of business credit would be most beneficial to real estate investors?
Great question. So there are three main categories or credit instruments that are vital to your listeners. The first thing I want to do is there are business credit cards. But here's the warning. Here's the landmine. We're all waking up in the middle of the minefield. There are business credit card posers. And what I mean by that is they have the language of being a business credit card, but they actually report to your personal profile. So every time you use it, your utilization goes up, your balances go up, your fundability and score go down. Discover It card is a business card. It reports to your personal profile. The Capital One Spark cards all report to your personal profile. And because they report to your personal profile, you think you're being a good businesswoman or businessman, and you're charging up. Some of you may be even carrying on your Spark card. You may be carrying balances because it's for your business. And meanwhile, over on your, call your personal profile, the goose that lays golden eggs, while you're rehabbing a house, you're literally butchering the goose that lays the golden eggs. Your score goes down, your fundability goes down, you're negatively impacting your future approvals, and you think you're doing a great job. So number one, the credit instrument is business credit cards, but make sure that business credit card does not report to your personal profile. And I'm going to give you a list. If I can over deliver, if you go to getfundablecreditcards.com, that is plural at the end, getfundablecreditcards.com, there's a list. There's personal cards that are beneficial to your fundability. There are business cards that have been pre-vetted that do not report to your personal profile. If it's not on that list, I wouldn't get it. TD Bank, great business lending bank, but they use their credit cards report to personal. What does that do for us? That crushes the soul of our funding machine, which is our personal profile. So that's the first instrument. Second instrument, credit lines. Credit lines are designed to be turned every month, 2, 3 months, maybe even up to 6 months. That if you're rehabbing, write a check, do a deal, take down a property, rehab it with your credit cards and or the credit line, but then you pay it off when you sell, that's an amazing use of a credit line. The last one is a business loan. If you're in syndications, if you're buying notes, you don't put those on a credit line because you need churn on a credit line to get the most juice and build the best relationship with your lender. But business loans, if you can deploy all the capital at once, boom, you want a business loan. And all the rates are the low, other than mortgages, these rates are the cheapest rates on the planet. The cheapest credit cards are business credit cards. The cheapest credit lines are business credit lines other than mortgages and seconds or HELOCs. And so if you can deploy all the capital at once, I encourage business credit or business loans. So those are the big three that fall in this small business category. And all of those go up to $100,000 per bank. So if you want $500,000, as I teach in my master course, if you want $1 million in business lines of credit, you can build relationships with 2, 3, 5, 10 different banks, all who give you $100,000 in credit lines and or loans.
Wow. So much to learn here. And as you've gone through this conversation, I'm just becoming more and more aware of the fact that how obscure all of this information is. It is just not readily available to us. And I can see why so many of us have problems in the fundability category there. Why is it so difficult for real estate investors to qualify for traditional unsecured bank loans?
All right, couple of reasons. First of all, let me share this. We're waking up and standing. Now, is it making more sense than my analogy that I'm using is we're waking up, but we're still standing in the middle of a minefield that we've been blowing up our funding opportunities, right? Here's another one. Every single one of our businesses, the second we hit submit to starting an LLC or an INC in our states, they are tagged by the Secretary of State as fundable or unfundable using particular business codes. It's all done behind your back. You have no power over it until after the fact. And here's what happens. See, the feds give all the state Secretary of States the mandate that they have to register the type of business so they can see where the economy is growing. You hear them in the news reports, right? Which sector of the economy is growing? How many new blank types of businesses have started? Well, that's because Secretary of States read the words that are used in your profile or in the name of your business and the description of your business. And then they go over to the government site. It's called an SIC code or an NAICS code. They use the keywords from your business, and then they look at the code, the business code that is closest to it, and they assign it. And 75% of those codes are unfundable in automatic underwriting, the type of instruments that we're talking about. So real estate investors are like they're in the 78th to 90th percentile of deniability. They're so far downstream when it comes to being fundable. So if you have real estate property solutions, well, real estate and property are trigger words that's going to get you the wrong code. And that code then gets put on your file. It gets reported to the business credit reports so that now somebody pulls an Experian business credit report or a Dun & Bradstreet business report. There it is, sore thumb. You got an unfundable profile, and lenders say, "Yep, no, we don't lend to you." And I know some significant percentage of your listeners have received things saying, "Yes, we do not lend to your industry." That's the key to listen to is we don't lend to your industry. It's a high risk industry. So the master course that I talk about goes through this entire strategy. The lenders will lend to the genius in the business and drop the money into the container of the business. They will not lend to your deals. So in that master course, I teach this crazy powerful way to separate you from your deals, make you highly fundable, and then you lend to your deals. That's how, and it's all on the up and up. The KPMG, this largest accounting, consulting, management, advisory firm in the world, their second most powerful revenue stream is lending money to their client companies. It's all all the precedents are there. It's a bulletproof business model. You become fundable as the genius in the business, the strategist, but we have to separate you as the strategist from the tactical implementation of your deals. Lenders, since 2008, lenders are not funding your deals through business credit lines and business loans in this unsecured stated income single application marketplace. Sure, you can take all your documents in and they'll give you money, but you're securing it and you're leveraging all of your asset, or you are encumbering your assets. This is the process to get unencumbered money that is not tied to any of your assets.
Enlightened investors, what a conversation we've had today. Extraordinarily enlightening and so much more to learn and to gain here. Go to fundable.com and get more information. Merrill is there to help enlightened investors. Thank you for being with us. I look forward to our next conversation. Until then, be well and flourish. Merrill, thanks so much for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to Real Estate Investing Abundance, brought to you by Steve Talker Capital, a company working for passionate professionals like you to develop financial independence built on solid, passive real estate investments. As part of our efforts to make the world a better place, Steve Talker Capital contributes to activities and organizations committed to better understand the equine. These endeavors attempt to enhance the human treatment of horses worldwide. Steve Talker Capital, working for a world where all creatures, great and small, flourish abundantly. For resources to develop your financial independence, connect with us at stevetalker.com.